Welcome back to Sex Lives Unfiltered. I'm your host, Laura Muratori. And today we're going to be talking about bringing a little bit more of the human element into sex. What does that actually mean? First off, I'd like to acknowledge that so many people struggle with the ability to talk about sex. It is not easy for so many people that I speak to talk about sex. Now, why is that? Why are so many people in relationships or single so afraid to talk about sex? I've got lots of different theories on this and things that I've seen in practice that reasons why. First, we're not really given a proper sex education, especially in my generation and people in generations older than myself. We also were most likely taught, and I'm going to put a gendered lens on this for a moment, as women, not to talk about it, right? We don't talk about it, or sex is something to be fearful of. If we looked at modern culture at the moment, especially with rape around the globe, which is just horrifying, what is that really telling us? That we've got to worry about sex. That perpetuates, is sex even something to even talk about and be pleasurable? What else do women is to be polite, to be quiet, to be kind. Talking about sex is naughty. It's taboo. That's across the board for most humans. It's just something we don't talk about. And for guys, well, why are they not talking about sex? Well, it could be boastful. You could be seen as bragging about sex. Then if you are talking about sex, are you respecting people and the people that you're having sex with? There's that element of different reasons why, from a gendered lens, we don't want to talk about sex. But also the cultural approach, is it okay to talk about sex in life? With our friends, or, it's a bit weird to talk about with family but why does it have to be? Like, why does sexuality have to be so stigmatized and so awkward? Why can't we go out to dinner with a friend and talk about our sex life with ease? Why can't we go out with our partner or on a date and just nonchalantly say, oh, you know what? I really love this and that. Or I've been thinking I'd really like to try this sort of, or if you did this thing with your tongue or your mouth or with your hands, I think that could be really exciting for me. Or I've always thought about doing this thing. It's not necessarily you have to do any of those things, but why can we talk about the weather and make small talk, or even talk about deep and meaningful things and feelings? Hopefully that you're in a relationship where you get to talk about your feelings. If you're in a relationship where you don't talk about your feelings, imagine the pressure about talking about sex. We're kind of told that we can't talk about sex or politics at the moment. Well, I think that's been going for a long time. Why? Why does it have to be that way? Why can't we start rewriting the rules to talk about sex? And it doesn't mean it has to polarize sex as being good or bad, or something you've done wrong or something I've done wrong or something that we have to do. It's just actually just talking about it. That's the whole premise of today's show, because I find so many people don't have the confidence to just talk about sex. So I guess today I just want to give you some prompts about thinking about, well, what can you start thinking about to kind of warm you up, or why you might not want to talk about sex? Firstly, what did you learn growing up about sex? Did your parents cover your eyes while a sex scene was on? Were you told not to masturbate? Were you told that you had to have sex before marriage, or you couldn't have sex before marriage? What were you told and taught that sex actually represents? This would probably lead to some of your beliefs and in your internal thoughts about sex itself. So if you grew up thinking that sex was something that could be scary, something you have to abide rules by, so in a particular way that you have to act or be, then you kind of have this pre-organized script or identity of who you sexually should be. And if you've ever had a thought or a behavior outside of that, that could be a little bit uncomfortable because you're going outside what you always knew or you told that sex should be. So I want you to think about that. Another thing to think about is, well, not only what were you told about sex, but what was your first sexual relationship like? What did you learn about yourself from that sexual relationship? Was that person accepting? Did you feel like they were rejecting you? Do you feel that you needed to have sex for validation? Did you enjoy that sex? Was it pleasurable? Did you not feel that you were able to advocate for your pleasure? I want you to think back to that first sexual experience or that relationship and understand how that might have impacted you throughout your sexual journey. And maybe you're still with that person, which is absolutely fine. But I want you to see if you have continued any patterns or any beliefs throughout your entire sexual journey due to that one relationship. So that might have been you lost your virginity with somebody and what you realize is that they never wanted to have sex with you. Well, an example of this would be if they didn't want to have sex, then I might believe that I'm not enough. And if I don't believe that I'm enough, then each sexual relationship, I might feel challenged to bring something to the table and have equal or pleasurable sexual experience. Because if I don't believe I'm enough, then I'm probably not going to have much pleasure and I might be doing a lot of the doing for them in the bedroom. That's just one example. So, what was that sexual experience like? Another thing to think about is what is the worst case scenario? I ask this often a lot in sessions, but we have fears, right? When you get down to the fear, it kind of helps start breaking that fear down. But what is the worst case scenario? So the fear is I open myself up sexually and I say something I don't know, I say a sex activity that I like or a fantasy, and the other person doesn't like it. Well, then what? What does that mean? Does it have to mean anything? Well, let's say worst case, they don't want to do it. Well, then what's next? They don't want to do it. Well, then what am I making that mean about me? Am I a bad person? Am I weird? Am I strange? Are we sexually incompatible? Is there no sexual chemistry because I said I want to do something that they don't want to do? Or vice versa. That's when our human brain starts taking over and then starts saying, okay, well, there's something wrong here. And therefore, I can't bring up sex. So, again, worst case scenario. Okay, let's say they do shame you. Let's say, oh, that's really gross. I would never want to do that. I can't believe you do that. Now, if this is somebody you're in a long term relationship with, then I would urge you to change the language of this relationship, change the communication styles, and make this relationship more accepting. My guess is that this relationship would have some fundamental issues, not just sexual ones. So that's something you might need therapy for. Now, let's say you're not in a long term relationship and you are shamed by somebody and somebody says, oh, that's gross or weird. Or, oh God, I can't believe that. Or you want it too much or you never want it. Well, then the other hand is if somebody is deeply contemptuous or critical, do you really want to date that person? Like, do you want to continue dating and pursuing something if they are going to shame and criticize you sexually? Maybe not. Maybe the language can be changed to more accepting, or the ability to be vulnerable and honest is really key here. So hopefully if you were in that situation and that relationship didn't shift into accepting and honorable and respectful, then you know what? You're not going to waste your time and you're not going to be with them. So I guess what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is that if you challenge your fears and get down to what is the worst case scenario and it actually happens, it's usually not that bad. And this can apply for so many sexual situations, which I'll get into probably in some other episodes. But when I'm just bringing this up in terms of, okay, so I've brought up, I'd like to have sex tonight. The other person doesn't. Okay, and they don't want to have sex. Why is this the worst case scenario? What am I making that really about? Is it about me? Because if it's the story that I tell myself about me, to me, that's far greater than not having sex. The ability to talk about sex, it's just fundamental in a relationship, right? Because if you're not having sexual conversations, or if it's really hard to talk about sex might be polarized black or white. We're either having it and it's fine or it's great or it could be improved, or we're not having it. And if we're not having it, then there's a problem or there's a discrepancy, or maybe again, somebody's not attractive or somebody doesn't love each other. Those are usually the two main things that I hear, all because we couldn't voice anything about sex to begin with. This is why this is imperative to work on ourselves and to bring it into a relationship gently, slowly, and that's what therapy is for, is to start how we can start talking about sex in a way where two people can feel safe, seen, and heard, not having to disrespect each other, not polarizing or making it a problem, but just the ability to talk about it, which can really help the sex. Another thing about not talking about the sex, I find, is that people feel very vulnerable, right? They're now on display. They're feeling very seen, exposed. And if they're exposed, that makes people shrink. And if we're shrinking, we're not going to want to jump into the bedroom quickly, right? So a lot of times people are reluctant to talk about things because they know that they're going to shrink and then not want to go have sex, which makes complete sense if you think about it, right? What I'd get you to think about today and maybe, due course is, why are you shrinking? Why can't you sit there and be confident in your abilities to talk about something? What is it about the subject matter? again, that makes you shrink. So there's a connection there about the shrinking and then not wanting to talk about it and the topic of sex. Sex really does not have to be that taboo. We make it that way, right? Looking at it again through a gendered lens, why are we all getting so up in arms as you didn't stick it in and therefore you don't love me, or you don't love me if you didn't let me do that and our relationship's failing? I mean, just think about that concept. Just think about it. I mean, saying it aloud probably just sounds a bit vulgar. I didn't get to put my penis in you, therefore our whole relationship is flawed. Does that make any sense? I mean, look, sex feels amazing. Sex is great. Sex is connecting. Sex relieves pressure. Sex does release some happy hormones in the body. It's healthy. I can go on and on about all the positives of sex, right? I'm biased. I have a history being a sex therapist. So I'm not going to diss sex. But at the same time, why are we all getting so up in arms that, oh my God, or equally, you didn't stick it in me and therefore I must not be hot anymore? Why does that have to be true? Why do these two concepts always have to coincide? So decoupling these concepts is an interesting task for a lot of couples and individuals to do. I know I'm digressing, but it's all under the guise of talking about sex, talking about the challenges that we all face. Because look, why on earth would somebody have a fabulous sex life their whole life? Like, it doesn't make sense. Can we have one compartment of our life go perfectly every single time? Like parenting. Is anybody a perfect parent? Is anybody a perfect employee or a perfect employer? Does anybody play sports perfectly every single time? Do you treat your friends perfectly and mind read exactly what they want all the time? No. So why do we feel the need that over here in the bedroom is a place where things can't go wrong? It's kind of silly if you think about it. Things will go wrong. We will have discrepancies. But the important bit is not letting it shake your internal foundation and your sexual identity for things going wrong. This is what sexual empowerment is. This is what I spoke about sexual sovereignty is a principle of. There are many different principles that this actually is a basis off of. So today, it's a short episode, but please just start thinking about, are you shrinking? Can you talk about sex? If there's parts of sex you can talk about, what parts are those? If there's parts you can't, then why can't you talk about them? What is it about those topics that you find so scary? And again, what is the worst case scenario if you do bring these things up? If you have a partner that's not accepting, I hope that you too can shift that, because it will really help your sex life in the long run. Not only will it help your sex life in the long run, it's also going to probably help your relationship, your friendship, and the foundation of your relationship. How we talk about sex is so important. It can make or break the sex we're having. So I really hope that people can stop shrinking. We can open ourselves up to having those uncomfortable conversations, because you know what? It doesn't have to be comfortable. Who said that sex always has to be comfortable and easy to talk about? Nothing's always easy to talk about unless we're skirting away from things and not showing up with our true self. And if you're not showing up with your true self, my guess is you're probably not having super amazing sex, or you're doing yourself a disservice by not having a thriving sex life. So I hope you're having a thriving sex life, or are aiming to get there, starting to explore what would help you have a thriving sex life. I hope you're embracing your sexuality, because you do deserve it. Thank you for tuning in today on this mini episode on why it's really common to not feel confident talking about sex, and some little ways that you can start opening it up. Good luck.